Jonathan Vigliotti is with me now with more on that question. How could this happen, Jonathan?
And it's a good question and one that is difficult to get the answer to. It is day 6. People are still searching for loved ones, and they are demanding answers. We know they were not placed under that mandatory evacuation. County officials are now under investigation for their response. As that happens, families are being allowed to return back to what is left of their homes, describing scenes of chaos and utter confusion. And all the while, journalists are not being allowed through those same roadblocks to tell their stories.
Nearly 1 week after a firestorm torched Lahaina, a boat is one of the only ways to bypass roadblocks and document the growing crisis and investigation.
We're walking down Front Street through the historic district, and you can see every building here has been absolutely gutted by these flames. And we're noticing these orange X's. That indicates that they've actually gone in and inspected. But what is incredible, and this gives you a sense of scale, we've been walking now for more than a mile, and these are the first buildings I have seen that have been looked at.
Especially striking, this line of burned out cars, a haunting landscape frozen by fire.
Residents got into their cars and flooded this street, but they could not outdrive the flames. We're talking car after car. I see several dozen of them were engulfed in flames, and residents tell me many of these drivers actually got out and jumped into the ocean to save their lives.
And officials say that text alerts were sent out, but cell towers were knocked out, so many did not receive them. We have reached out to county officials about the response before, during, and now after this disaster. Tony, we have not heard back. We've placed many calls over several days. As all of this unfolds, many are still missing, and we do not know what sparked this fire.
Jonathan, good morning.
And Tony, good morning to you. We've been here since day one and immediately began asking the question, why did the sirens not go off? Officials told us they could have saved lives and that all of this wind could have knocked them offline. But we now know the sirens were working, and it was one person's job to decide whether to activate them. He told me he knew that the fire was growing and still did not pull the alarms.
Do you regret your decision, and have you considered handing over the reins to somebody with more experience?
To say that I am not qualified, I think, is incorrect. I went through a very arduous process, and I was vetted, had to take a civil service exam. I was interviewed by seasoned emergency managers.
Do you regret not sounding the sirens?
I do not. And the reason why...
So many people said they could have been saved if they had time to escape. Had a siren gone off, they would have known that there was a crisis emerging. And as we know, so many bodies were found in the ground as the flames caught their heels.
Give me the answer? The sirens, as I mentioned earlier, is used primarily for tsunamis. And that's the reason why many of them are found, almost all of them are found on the coastline.
And last week, the governor launched an investigation into the county's protocol, including why the sirens did not go off. We now know that answer. And this morning, so many people want to know how many precious moments were lost because they had no warning, Gail.
I know, that's the thing. Very tough questions there, Jonathan, and I'm not sure he did himself any favor with his answers.
Questions mount for the head of emergency management, who resigned amidst the criticism. CBS's Jonathan Vigliotti has the latest.
Last Thursday night, Maui Emergency Management Agency Administrator Herman Andaya resigned, citing health reasons. Over this past week, we heard shifting explanations from Andaya and other Hawaii officials why the sirens were never activated.
See, it's an outdoor siren, so a lot of people who are indoors. The sirens, as I mentioned earlier, is used primarily for tsunamis. Had we sounded the siren that night, we're afraid that people would have gone Mauka. And if that was the case, then they would have gone into the fire.
People are not dumb.
So much frustration tonight, and it's still unclear where exactly Andaya was and what he was doing during his critical decision-making. We have reached out to county officials for comment, but we have not heard back, JB.
Jonathan Vigliotti with his continued excellent reporting.
Palmyra is perhaps best known for its ancient ruins, but it also had a thriving new city, and that's where we are right now. And look at the sheer scale of destruction. Before the war started, 80,000 people lived here. Today, we're told only 35 families have returned.
Among them, Frida Mahmoud and her son, who opened a small kebab stand 2 months ago. I hope everyone will come back, she said, because there's something we say, even in heaven, if there's no one around, you can't sleep.
One of the biggest issues with rebuilding Palmyra is something as simple as the lack of utilities. There's very little electricity here and absolutely no running water. Families that have returned come here every morning to get the water they need for the day. And right now, fire crews are dropping flame retardant on these flames. This is exactly what fire crews were afraid of. These flames making their way over this hill so rapidly, directly in the line of sight of these homes. Jeff, it's important to point out, at this hour, 20,000 homes have been evacuated for this exact reason.
And important to point out the danger those firefighters continue to put themselves in. Jonathan, thank you.